Okay, Luke, let's talk about volume with fractions. Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to use something called mini cubes first to kind of prove that fraction volume works the way that we think it does. And then we're going to actually just use the formula to see if it matches. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so here we've got a rectangular prism, like a box, and it's got the dimensions of 3.5 by 2.5 by 1.5. Okay, so this is kind of like what you're used to, except we haven't done so much with fractions. So now you have fractions, which are kind of a pain, and you're saying, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? How would you normally find the volume of this kind of a shape here?
Length times width times height.
Okay, so we're going to try that when we go over to this side, when we use the formula, because that's the formula. But first I want to prove to you that the formula actually works. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this cube up into a bunch of mini cubes, like that. Okay?
Okay.
Now each one of these mini cubes, it looks like this little one over here on the side, and it's 1/2 by 1/2 by 1/2. Okay?
Okay.
And that's what I've divided this up into. So if we look at, for instance, this length right here, how many mini cubes are along there?
7.
7 mini cubes. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that in. Now, does that make sense too? Well, what is 7 times 1/2? Is it 3.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. How about for this dimension up here? How many mini cubes are there?
5.
Right, because 5/2 is 2.5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And how about the other dimension over here? How many mini cubes?
3.
3, and you can count that really easily too.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to ask ourselves this question. How many cubes are there total? How would you calculate that?
3 times 7 times 5.
Very good, okay. So let's go ahead and do that. The cubes will be 7 times 5 times 3. Let's do a little mental math here. What's 7 times 5?
35.
35, so that's 35 times 3. Now this is a little bit harder, but let's try it with mental math. What's 35 times 3? Can you do that in your head?
105.
It is 105. And how did you do that in your head, just out of curiosity?
Just like I would set it up normally.
Like you would set it up so that you kind of wrote it in your head and you did 3 times 5 and then carried the 1? Yeah. Now, another way to do it would be 30 times 3. What's that?
90.
90. And then 5 times 3, what's that?
15.
And what's 90 plus 15?
105.
105. So that's another way to check your mental math. Okay, so let's see if that's what we have here. Yeah, so there's 105 cubes. Okay, so there's 105 cubes there. Now let's find what the volume of 1 cube is. Okay, so let's look back up here at our little drawing here. How would we find the volume of this cube here?
1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2.
Okay, so let's go ahead and set that up. Volume is 1/2 times 1 times 1/2. So let's multiply all those numerators. What's 1 times 1 times 1?
1.
Okay, and then what's 2 times 2?
4.
Times 2 again?
8.
Okay, so 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/8, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 105 cubes, and each one has a volume of 1/8. So how would we find the volume of the whole prism?
105 times 1/8.
Okay, very good. So the volume of the prism is 105 times 1/8, or 105/8. Do you see why that's true?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then we can turn this into a mixed number. It can't really be simplified, but if you were to go ahead and do the division, you would find out that that equals 13 1/8. Okay?
Okay.
So that's what we get when we divide this rectangular prism up into mini cubes, is an answer of 13 1/8. Now let's go over here and just use the formula. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're going to use that formula that you already said, which is length times width times height. And we're going to go ahead and set it up that we can also write it more easily like that, so we don't have to write out all those words. V equals L times W times H. So let's go ahead and put in our values. Do you see how we get that from the big cube? From the rectangular prism? Okay, good. So now we're going to go ahead and multiply some fractions. I find it hard to multiply with mixed numbers, so I like to turn these fractions into mixed numbers. So what's 3.5 in a mixed number?
7.
7 halves, right?
Yeah, 7 halves.
Okay, how about 1.5?
3 halves.
3 halves, and how about 2.5?
5 halves.
5 halves, so we can make it into that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now the bottom, let's multiply those denominators. What's 2 times 2 times 2? We just did it a moment ago.
8.
8, okay, and then what's 7 times 3 times 5? What's 7 times 3?
21.
Okay, And and I'm going to go ahead and put this all this in. And 21 times 5 is 105, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then so that we have 105 eighths, which we already said over here on this side right over here, 105 eighths equals 13 and 1/8. So we got the same answer. Okay? So that's why it works. You shouldn't get confused when you have fractional lengths to a rectangular prism. It's the same formula. Just use it, and we just proved it over here using mini cubes. Make sense?
Yeah.
Great job.